we've actually been meeting with element tribes. This is a new part of sovereignty mentorship. And as I was mentioning earlier, we developed element tribes because we realized that there was really four different type of ambassadors that were coming into sovereignty mentorship that had four different needs. So we decided to cater to those needs and actually utilize the elements to do that, because it seems like everything fits together perfectly. And so we have the Earth Tribe, which is actually for those that are just coming in. They just landed on a YouTube video or something and they thought it sounded amazing, and now they're coming in to take a deeper look and they're wondering, oh my goodness, what is all of this? And so we set up the Earth Tribe so we have some, basically a direct path to the beginner process of going through this multidisciplinary. Then we began also the Air Tribe, which is more or less opposite from Earth. And it's for those who are really kind of coming in solo. They're not really even looking to make any friends. They want to know what the secret passwords are and the highest levels of the arcana, and they don't want to be disturbed. And that is the Air Tribe. And by the way, in each of these tribes, there's information that we've put together and wisdom that specifically caters towards that specific element. And so we also have the Water Tribe, which I actually got a chance to meet with yesterday. It was amazing. Water Tribe is really designed around leadership, and for those that not only are leading in their community, but also aspire to do that. It digs deep into communication and understanding, especially in a very modern way, how to really get across what you're looking to get across, and also to really begin to really communicate, just make some type of harmonics within your reality through sound. And then finally, we have today the Fire Tribe, and the Fire Tribe is about that life. This is the actual group that basically they got about 1 month. They paid the $79, and now they want to see this thing work for them. And so it's the fast track program for immediate results. The reason why also I did send out some invites to those that are actually on the other side of what's called sometimes the paywall is because I felt this was a very dynamic build that was going to happen today. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible, but I had an epiphany in relation to finances and economics, and I wanted to share that immediately. And I will tell you for the record, just in case if you ever wondered yourself, the reason why we have sovereignty mentorship and there is a premium there of only $79 a month is I did learn over time that if you give everything away, people feel like it has no value. It's a very interesting phenomena. You can actually put that in your book yourself and see if you find that to be true. But at the end of the day, we found that it's a fine balance to actually have the paid side, as we're calling it, where the person has to make a real intention to say, hey, I want to make these changes in my life. And then, of course, we have YouTube, where it's 700 videos deep. I checked out the other day, average runtime 2.5 hours, millions of minutes of views, and that's always going to light things up anyway. And so we feel like that keeps things balanced. So today, what I'm actually going to build on, and by the way, when I say build, it's interesting that most of the things that we do in life that entail many steps can be done almost indefinitely, meaning that if you are building a house, you can keep building that house all your life. Even if you were doing a painting, it's like you can just work with one area for 2 or 3 years. If you're, doing something like embroidery and carpets and, woodworking or anything, it's like you have to be able to tell yourself when it's time. Excuse me, I didn't get any water for myself. But you have to be able to tell yourself when it's time to, get that out there, get that conception into manifestation. And so I deal with this all the time. I deal with the creative process. I'm also super engaged. As a multidisciplinary, I really don't look at anything as if it's bad or good. I just really, really observe and see how things have worked. I see patterns, and I use what I would call a blueprint to give me a deeper insight on what's going on in life and how I can actually become the master of my own destiny. And I think that today this is relative because it brings us right into the 4 elements, and it brings us right here on the full moon too, which is kind of interesting. And so before we get started, what I would like to do, because I definitely don't have any water over here, and I'm sure at some point I'm going to run hot, I would like to just invite everybody here to take a moment with yourself to kind of erase anything that's happened before this particular build and this particular connection that you're having right now, really from your mind for a moment. You know, if you was late picking up somebody and, you know, somebody says something crazy to you, or, you know, you got a whole nother agenda on your mind, like you're just waiting for me to open up the mic so you can go nuts. Whatever you're doing, I'm asking, just take a moment for yourself, breathe in. And if you do have some Palo Santo or sage or incense or ilimi or anything that actually is one of those noble trees that can actually assist you in transmuting your environment from just where you're at, then I recommend that you probably would blaze that up and use that now. And if you don't have that, then, you know, just know tomorrow you got something to do. It's always a good opportunity to take advantage of being able to morph your reality and morph your reality by changing the smell in your environment. Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick moment. I'm going to grab some water, and I would also advise you to take a few breaths like I'm going to do, and then we're going to dive right into this elemental way of understanding wealth and what could be a potential new way of approaching how to become wealthy. So we'll put it that way. Yeah, so just a moment. Okay, so I will say that every time I do come into the space, I look to do my best. I have a love for humanity. I have a love for the existence. That love is never going to end. It's never going to change. And I do look forward to consistently just delivering sometimes a different insight. I believe that we all are viewing the same reality for sure, but we're seeing it different ways. And it always assists when we can get like a 360-degree view of the experience. And so I'm going to work with that now, a 360-degree view into our future and to what is the potential of what we can create when we come into perfect alignment with who we are and our powers. And it's interesting when we use this term powers, it's really, there's only like 4 powers here, meaning that there's 4 forces of power, and anyone that wields power knows that and has the opportunity to dial into those powers if they know how and get those powers to work for them. And it's very interesting because it's very similar to when we talk about powers, it's very similar to, I think the easiest way to put this would be, let me start somewhere else. Let me start somewhere else here because I have a process of this understanding. I want to really first talk about where all this came from. And I also want to fulfill my promise of just doing only audio. So I'm going to do that. Because when the camera's on, you just feel like, oh my goodness, the camera's on, they're looking at me. And then, you know, it's like you have a hard time thinking. I will admit, after years of broadcasting, it's like being on camera is one thing, being on a podcast is another. And I also feel like maybe sometimes I haven't really come out and really did anything because on the public channels is because I just want to do a podcast sometimes rather than booting up the whole video system. So I'm just going to start that way. So I'm going to dive into this with you by first, you know, giving you some insight on what my day has really been looking like, especially now that we're now engaged in launching our own DAO. And so that means we've been looking into creating our own economy, bringing in governance models. We've actually been looking at utility, and that means that we actually need to create something that has value. We definitely don't want to launch any kind of speculations. We have a very strong reputation, not only in our community, but just, you know, I have a personal ethic that I always want to hold to, and it's valuable to me. So it just means that anything I get into, I got to not only work a bit harder, I also have to really, really make it still obey the original principles of how I came into this in the first place, which is really not giving your energy up to anything and just being the Lord and the master of your own life. And I came into today because I've been working on some stuff with AI and, you know, just really seeing in the chambers how that's not only innovating so many different aspects of business, but that basically this is the perfect design, if you may, to be so disruptive to the reality that people are kind of left just trying to figure out what even happened in the first place. Meaning that there's this thing that's going on in the reality where people want the reality to be the same as it used to be, or they want to go back to the norm. But reality has shown that it never does that. It just keeps smashing through. And if you don't know how to really ride this wave, then you can get wiped out. And what that sometimes is about is a person will see some new things coming, and then they'll be like, that's not what I believe in, or that's not what I'm about. And, sometimes that attitude is just the old crusty attitude that just doesn't want to learn anything new anyway. And we have to examine, is it really the thing that we're talking about, or is it just a way or a state of mind that maybe even we're being taught? And what I mean by that is that there seems to be this state of mind these days where that anything that you're working on, you're trying to do, somebody is there being the critic, like, you shouldn't do that, or that's the worst thing. And I always say that kind of comes from the church, let's find the devil today kind of program that runs in most people. And meanwhile, when you look a little bit deeper, you start actually seeing that there's this underlining scenario that keeps occurring. And that scenario is centered around us missing out on big opportunities. And I'm just going to go kind of like from top down or maybe from the bottom up on this one. Missing big opportunities. And I started to examine like why that's happening. So I saw some technology just the other day deploy and take on 60,000 users in 2 hours and gross the company just in that instant approximately $1.2 million per month, and that they had only invested $300,000, $300,000 to $600,000. So $1.2 million a month for a $600,000 initial investment. So, and this is the technological space, of course, software. So I'm seeing, this kind of aggressive growth, and I'm right there. So it's not even like I'm just like reading about this in a paper. I'm just kind of in the loop with so many things just from using critical thinking. Like, who are the people really making moves? Are they doing some kind of Zoom chats? Everything is the new CV environment. So everybody's trying to do stuff on Zoom and meetings, and all these meetings are now open, and, everybody's going horizontal, and, so there's a lot of stuff happening. So if you really wanted to just be, again, that fly on the wall of the biggest innovators of this time, you could be, because they're not like your stars and actors or rock stars or anything. In their own space they are, but in every aspect, they're not like being checked after. So they just kind of live their normal lives in the groups of the people that know them. And many of them are very open to just building and talking, because after all, they have billions of dollars, and that's pretty much what their life is. But they didn't kind of come into it in a way where, it's kind of like a capitalist version of coming into $1 billion, kind of like what we see on the movies. Where it's like, yeah, I won. And then you're just going in on boats and all that. Many of these people are still working 9 to 5 or with foundations and all types of stuff, still building projects and plans that they put together, or started putting together years ago. So basically I'm saying they're normal people in that respect, but they have abnormal resources and abnormal money, if you may, or normal for them now. And so when I was really just building in this nucleus and seeing what all these guys were talking about and these ladies, I realized, because I always have this moment where I'm like, man, where are my people at? Not saying that we're all not the same spectrum, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes you just feel like you're sitting there with a bunch of androids or something, and you're wondering like, where are conscious people when the things that are going to shape their future are being put together? And I realized that, if I could give you an analogy of it, it's like when I have a headache, when I have a really strong headache, I can't do anything. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to look at a screen. I don't want to think about one of my projects. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to get over that. And, in many cases, some people medicate when they get a headache, right? You can take ibuprofen, or you could I use the ocean, it takes it right away. So, you got to go and medicate. But while that's happening, you're just kind of in this stage of medicating and getting rid of the immediate situation that's bothering you. And I started to feel like that's kind of what we're doing right now when it comes to even sometimes consuming knowledge, wisdom, going on spiritual journeys, getting into power groups, talking with each other, talking it out. So I'm not saying there's anything negative about this, but I feel like that we're medicating something. Like we're medicating this trauma that we're experiencing not only daily, but also what we have experienced. And then we're going into these engagements to basically heal us from what the other frequencies that we used to be in, or that we're trying to get away from, right? Completely. And I feel like in that process, just like in my headache process with medication, it's like I'm still not getting anything done though. I need to be very clear that I'm just me there dealing with my headache. I'm not me there pioneering a new future for myself. So I feel like that sometimes we just have to wake up to that the world's going to keep moving forward, and it needs beings that are very innovative, very empathic, very creative to really take the reins of life, because we do really all have the opportunity to do that now. And if you don't, what this build was about today was really some of the things that could make it so it would appear that that's not possible for you right now. Because I'm a person like you. If you're listening to what I'm saying, that means you have some type of comprehension. I dug my way from nothing, like less than nothing, the netherworld, all the way up to the top to glide down the slide again and have some fun and chilling out with my beloved and my brothers and sisters, and then make the climb again with them like a hike, and then free dive back in again. So meaning that, you know, as being a connoisseur of life, I just find that, wow, there's some things that you can really take a look at in your life, and they will give you all the indicators to why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And today you're going to learn how to do that through elements. So let me keep going. So the first thing is that, so as I mentioned, so why are we missing sometimes and the big moves are being made? Probably because we're medicating. And then what happens is that, you know, TV could be a version of medication. Hanging out with friends could be a version of medication. Weed can be a version of medication. There could be, you know, the volleyball, the job, football, sports. So all these could be actually versions of medication to allow you to feel comfortable in the frequency. But the work at times that needs to be done to pioneer the future, it should be taken account, because what I noticed in life is that you kind of live life initially, I mean, especially if you have the opportunity to, in a very selfish way. Like kids are very selfish in many ways, like they just are. But then as you get older, it starts to become kind of about everybody else, but more importantly, how is everybody else viewing you? And then you kind of come completely outside of yourself. Now you're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing anymore. And then you're kind of struggling. And that's kind of the vicious cycle that we would see happening. So what I would first like to say is that when we think about currency, money, we start noticing this phenomenon that, well, if you're noticing, that some people can't seem to retain money. Now, we figured out that actually money was related to water. We figured out that money was actually related to current, which is why they call it currency, of course. And that these currents are about like these forces that are moving through the ocean or the water. And that if you had a boat and you open up your sails, that you could even win the race if you knew how to sail those currents. Okay, so from the most basic level, most of our financial terminology is always hinting to, hey, this is about the water element. So what you can say then is that a person who can't really retain money, it pretty much means then that the current is always getting right to where it will overflow their banks. Okay, so basically that the current will always overflow their banks, but their banks would be very, very short. Okay, so let's rewind this because there's another word, the banks. So what is the bank of a river? The bank is where the water stops. Okay, so if you think about this, that the bank then of a person is kind of where their money stops, because once they overflow their banks, now all of that is just being wasted from there. So if a person has basically a very small bank, then if they get a little bit of money, it already starts to overflow and they can't retain that money. Now, of course, some people have a higher bank. They can hold a lot more resources, but they may still also find the same phenomena occurs. They may have like hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in, but hundreds of thousands of dollars is going out. And it seems like for them that they can never really get into like the billion or the $1 million range and to probably observe that the same thing would still be going on. They'd be a millionaire with $1 million coming in and $1 million going out, until they realize that there's actually a certain principle going on here, and it has a lot to do with elementals. And this element is water. And how high your bank is literally how much money you can hold. So this is what was coming across the consciousness today. And, it was full moon. So I was just like I was, chilling with Destin, I was working on something massive, and I just kind of had this moment, and I was able to drop this gym in like 10 minutes. And I said, you know what, I'm going to get on tonight and I'm going to tell everybody that, because Fire Tribe is, they be about their resources. So I want to bring in this new perspective of how to actually become abundant in your life with elementals, because if you also understand the temperament of water, let's kind of dig into the temperaments a little bit. Why, if you took water as a personality, we're not saying who's good, we're not saying who's bad, because this actually leads to power, but why would water really want to keep you personally without having more money than where your bank is? Like, why doesn't the ocean overflow on the land? And it's because when you see water, so let me give it to you in metaphysics. When you see water, we're going to talk about the biggest body of water in the world, and that is the ocean. So you know that the ocean has what we call sea level, right? So we can say sea level, we can call sea level ground zero. It's like the midpoint. It's like, and because obviously, when you go into the ocean, below sea level is deep. It's so deep. It's the most uncharted, unexplored region on Earth for physical human beings. I will argue all day that it is a big chunk of the astral plane. But the deep is this region, and in the ancient metaphysics, they call that the netherworld. But the only thing that I'm zooming into here is that even when it rains, as it's going through the rivers, it all goes back into the ocean. And the ocean is this huge, huge repository of water. But notice how water always flows through something and then it goes down. So when you think of water's characteristics to be water means that it does need to retain and it does need to pull things down. It's very important to understand this, that water also has another characteristic, that water, the reason why when people want to know secrets, they will connect with water. And it's because water can't hold secrets. It knows everything, but it can't hold it. It seeps through. Has anybody ever heard that term, you can't hold water? So naturally, what I'm showing you is water naturally wants to come out of even what is being holding it and then go down into the deep. And so that means naturally, as an element, you would need to master water. You would need to be able to understand how to take water basically from the deep and then bring it into the air parts of your body. And you do that with fire. And that's why this is the fire tribe. Because you can put fire and water together and it creates what? Steam. Steam goes up into the air, and then now we're generating. But you need to understand the two principles, because I love water. I'm a naturally watery person. Like when I get into water, I just know everything. Like it's something weird with me and water. And that's because many of us are actually water people. So right now, because the body is 70% water, pretty much everybody's a water person. Just, a little addendum here. But we do actually have some people who are really fiery beings. You have fiery beings and earthly beings and airy beings on the planet. But the money magic, though, that everybody is engaged in is based on water. And this is why it's important to kind of understand water if you ever wanted to understand finances, economics, and money. Just because, again, so you may not even want to have anything to do with that, but because you're engaging in commerce every day, you need to understand water, because water is connected to money, and you need to understand water's personality to understand what you're going through, because most people will always remain broke because the watery energy actually really encourages people to do netherworld things. Okay? The watery energy for us is really our legs. As far as the body, the legs are the netherworld. And so what I mean by that is that, now again, we're not talking positive or negative here. We're just saying that water, to preserve itself as an element, as being water, needs everything to be in that pool. Just like you see, it's a pool of water, Pool. And then you have a pull, like to pull something to it. And that is behavior. So the thing about mastering water is you also have to kind of know how, when your emotions are now pulling you into the netherworld, basically, because water wants you there. Water is also the kind of like the mother, not kind of like, but is the mother of all of the energies. So it's going to want to pull those energies in. But what happens as a fiery being if water just completely just pulls you in? It's not going to be steam no more. You're going to get put out. So you got to understand there's this thing about water too, that people who get so deep into the watery netherworld energy, that's why they actually say that some of the entities way down there are really called zombies. And they move like zombies, and they have like one control unit, and because they've completely let go of any kind of controlling things on their own, and they're just completely in the flow. Okay? Now, I'm not here to tell you which one of these is better. I'm just explaining the element. So those that are most watery are completely in the flow. So when it's up, when the tide is up, they up. When the tide crashes, they crash. And so let's dig a little bit deeper into this. Now we want to talk about then, so if you have a small bank and you now want to increase that bank, which would be basically like a topological thing. It would be like the difference between living oceanfront, if you may, or like you're right on ground zero, versus living up onto a mountain energetically. So the more you rise, the higher your banks become. So like if you're on the top of a mountain, right, and you can look into the ocean, what is the probability that the ocean will be as high as the top of that mountain, that the top of that mountain will now become the ocean's overrunning point, or it will overrun the top of the mountain's bank? The probability is much more lower. We're not saying it couldn't happen, though. And this is why in life, we always have to you don't have to do anything, but you should keep climbing higher, keep swimming, stay lit. Even if you think that you're already at the pinnacle or the peak, just keep going. Because the water is always rising. And that's what another saying is the water is always rising. And now I see why, because so many people are consistently being added to the netherworld. It increases the amount of water in that space. And so, and so they say, well, how do people how are increasing going in the netherworld? It's a matter of preference. If you actually are vibrating just netherworld stuff your whole life and you never get an opportunity to see what's in the air, to get some wings, to, get into the, even the heights of the sun, et cetera. And if you never experience that, then, you're going to just by preference keep diving deep into the netherworld. So again, this is not about good or bad. It's just elements. And also realizing that the reality works very powerfully on elements. We're around mages and those who are practicing mysticism, especially in the financial markets. So we can then say that a deluge can occur when someone gets too much money or attention or current and they got small bank. We're seeing this now go on spiritually, meaning some people are, diving into spiritual knowledge and they have a small bank. And when they go on one of these journeys, they just get deluged. Being in the mind of God, which is you, can drive you insane if you're not prepared for the vastness of what you're dealing with. So if you just turn the current up, that's like when you take certain substances, they can give you some current for that time, especially the crystals, right? So you go and eat up a bunch of crystals real quick and you're going to get all that, even beyond piezoelectric energy running through your system. And then you're going to feel like God as your face is melting. And then your soul is bleeding into the next galaxy. You see what I mean? It's like, and then there's all sorts of stuff going on. Your brain's trying to hang on to what the hell is going on, and it's starting to see things that it can't describe. And then the wheels start slipping. I call that deluge. Okay? So we can see folks be delusioned now. It's like, I mean, I think they come back though. That movie, sometimes they come back. I think they come back, but it happens. Like I've been at the brinks of my own sanity before. I've never been deluged. I've even seen a conversation go on where something was asking, could it deluge me? And whatever it was asking said no. So that's the last time I got that close to the brink. But I'm just saying, like, there's this point where, like, you could see with your stars, your actors, your rappers, that when they get too much, it overruns their banks. And then from there, it's really easy to control, especially for their handler, everything they believe, everything they think, right? So what we're looking for this median, this ability to increase our bank while also making sure that we don't deluge ourselves. We now look at also that there's a deeper knowledge here just about elementals, because we just talked about water here a little bit. But this deeper thing is that anything that you're requesting, like let's say, for instance, you want to heal something. Even that external, that I'm about to go and heal something, is a request. We got to understand how this works. So somebody's sick right there, and then you're going to go and lay hands on them and heal them. This is an external gesture. Even though you may use internal powers, this is an external thing. So anything that you're dealing with the powers in this reality can be metaphysically seen as external, that something is being asked. More importantly, that something the element is being asked. That's the power here. But what happens, and this is very basic, we got two-way radios. I'm trying to hit you up on this radio and you are on the wrong channel or a different channel. I can't hear you. So you have to be very clear when you understand mysticism. When you talk to elements, which is an energetic thing, you have to be on the channel of the element. And this is why you don't ask certain elements to do certain things. Now, some will see this again. Like, I'm trying to explain this externally because that seems to be the only way to even comprehend this kind of stuff for us today. But I'm definitely not advising you to go and grab up some ritual book and try to call on something. I'm advising you to find these elements inside of you from the most basic things that you're dealing with in life, and then see how when you start working with that element inside, how magically things start changing. So what I'm saying is, to master money, a person has to master water. What I'm telling you is water is very forthcoming in telling you secrets because it can't hold anything and it's everywhere. Water is everywhere. It's in these corpuscles, they call it, all these little globules in the reality, all in your body, all in these caves, all in these deep mountains, all in the president's house, all over the place. But the thing is, water can't hold water. It hears all the secrets, but it can't stop from divulging those secrets to anybody who asks. So sometimes you may just ask water, like, how do I understand? Because remember, water also is all these are very intelligent forces. So it's like, don't ask stupid questions. How can I understand? And then come with something that is right at the current of where life is right now, meaning that it's like fresh water. That's what I'm trying to say here. Fresh water. Because deep water is medication. That's why, in certain spiritual traditions, they try to take you deep into water. Let's baptize him. Because it's medication in deep water. But fresh water, freshly flowing spring water, is the trend and the tide of what is going on right now. And when you're talking about solidifying your future, solidifying your legacy, the reason why I said that you may want to tune this in too as you're, getting your spiritual growth, because somewhere down the middle of the path, we often decide to have kids. Like, you be thinking, like, while you're younger, you don't be thinking nothing about it. Your teens, your 20s, you may abduct a couple. Parents, as though you ducking a couple, it's like, whoo, that was close. But again, at some point, I would say 7 out of 10, I guess is the ratio, you're going to have a child. And what's going to happen is that child is going to grow up in a future that does not look like the future that we're looking at right now. That's guaranteed. I have a very strong and clear glimpse of what the very near future looks like. And I'm saying that we need as many of our people as possible prominent. Because in the future, that's all there are. The corporations take care of everybody that's in their corporation. That's the smart city concept. You work for Sony, everything you need is taken care of like an all-in-one hotel or resort. Have you ever been to one of those? They even have the entertainment taken care of for you. Like that night, you're like, okay, we're going to the opera, or we're going to see the clowns in the Cirque du Soleil, or we going to see X. Which one? Okay, I'm going to book this one. And and let me tell you, these people that you're going to see, they live on the compound. They practice opera every day, and they come and sing to people every night, and they enjoy their life. That's what they want to do. But all that is in that nucleus. Your food is coming. They got the city where the food comes through the garage and then up the garage through an elevator into the refrigerator. There's no thing that people feel like I need to get more money to buy X, because that X has been now kind of drilled into the lulling drum of global warming, which means that extra of what you want is either in this VR headset, this thing going on tonight, potentially the sports game, something, but mainly everything is just in the nucleus and provided by that nucleus, like the military. Like, do you know that there's deep underground bases that they do have about 200-300 people working on that base. And everybody there marries each other. They have kids with each other. They never leave the base. There's no reason. They got commissary. They got a mall. They got everything. I'm just trying to explain to you, in the future, this is how things look, because things start, basically communities start forming. But for a worldwide community to form, there must be first smaller communities. Right now, we're living in domiciles. Everybody pretty much has their own cubicle or space. Community is where everybody is functioning in the nucleus. So even some of the things that we're growing, if that's the holistic purpose, the things that we're growing, the power that we're generating, all those things are actually being handled by the community. So this is why when all this stuff is going to be implemented, and it will be, it's not going to seem like you'll be seeming like you're on the wrong side of the fence, even if you're complaining about it, because it's going to come under a pretext like this is the moves we got to make anyway. Again, whether that's true or false, that's the way that everything is already going to roll out. So I'm not for sure trying to figure out how I'm going to comply with somebody's large corporations, because you can obviously see that the only people who are really going to technically have freedom is the people who own these outfits, while everyone else is going to have this perceived freedom. How does this perceived freedom come about? I'm just going to show you the slippery slope of this. So in a reality where because see, in capitalism, what capitalism is that there's a driver. There's literally a driver to make everybody want to start a company. Everybody want to figure out how to become successful, buy houses, all these different things. It's because, hey, we need to earn more money. But what happens in a society where how much money you have doesn't really make any difference? Because anything you needed, when you step out of the house in the morning, guess what? A car pulls up that's definitely not running on gas. You sit inside along with everybody else that you're going to work with, and it whizzes along quietly as it serves you up your coffees and all the rest of that stuff as you're heading to the main hub to do what you do there in that mega community. You see what I mean? So everything is so automated. It's like it's taking away all of the problems in life. If you have problems, you can go and see the psychologist or whatever, and that's paid for by the firm. You see what I mean? This is where it's going. But tell me then, though, because it sounds interesting. Some people say, well, that sounds like it's getting closer to utopia. But in the wrong type of community, it rapidly becomes a dystopia. How? And this is why we have to really create our own communities. This is now not an option anymore. We have to create our own smart cities, our own communities. How does it become a dystopia? Well, if you we know things metaphysically that we can put in play that will give incentive for a person to do great things. I mean, there's lots of stuff because you can go into activations. But for people who are not wanting to consider that, what are they going to do? How would they be excited about their existence again? And so this is how a utopia turns into a dystopia, because when there's no incentives, then there becomes something else, like a point system. So basically what I'm saying is, if it's not about who's going to make the most money anymore, how are we, because incentive is a big part of our reality and a big part as a driver to why people do what they do every day. If you remove the biggest component to incentive, how do you replace that? And basically what I'm explaining is you actually see this model in China already operating. You replace that with points, where the goal is not how many points you have, because that's money again. Like if I'm just earning points, like, I'm like a video game, like I'm number one in the society. No, that's not what they want to create. That's money. You see what I mean? Money is a point system that whoever has the most of it, that, you see what I mean? So they're not trying to recreate money. They're very clear with that. This point system is basically designed so as long as you're above a certain amount of points, then everything is going well for you in that society. And if you dip below those points, then things are not going so well. And instilling that kind of system, it basically, it robs society of the very essence of what makes us who we are. So this is what I'm preparing for right now, is to exist outside of that kind of construct, because that's when people start policing each other. That's when people start doing what they feel everybody wants them to do. They start acting like what they feel like is going to allow them to keep their points, basically, and not mess up their points. Then when they see you doing something, they may even try to get a few extra points just so that they can do something and still balance back out with where their points are. But see, the points are not designed so that you would have a bunch of them so you could become a millionaire number one with points. It's designed to be able to create a society where there's a check and balance system between everybody. And so what I realize is that if we don't get a grip right now on the real future, then our children are not going to be living in a reality that they would have expected their intelligent parents and conscious parents to have been able to carve for them. Like, I want to be able to look my daughter in the face and she know that I did everything to give her a legacy, because I was alive during the time where the big transition was happening. I'm telling you, the big transition in AI is no joke. This thing is running circles around humans right now. And it's because it's so many humans. It's all of our information, all of our data. They call it flattening. This means that they were laying out how much data they're trying to feed this thing every day as it is becoming sentient. Not the stupid stuff they got about Google and the guy talking about is Lambda sentient. Not that. But that there's some kind of version of sentience that's being bought online here, because this thing was, it first had regular data sets like pictures and images and stuff like that. Then it had all of our books. Then it had all Kindle's books. Then it had all Google's books. Then they start sicking it on all the Facebook data. Then they're going to turn it on to all the WhatsApp messages. And this thing is understanding all of what it's reading. It's not like a computer where now you got to program around it all the stuff to make it understand this. It already went beyond that point. That's why it's creating art now. And so what I'm getting at here is that I'm not seeing any of us in those conversations, though. And I'm also seeing the people that are in those spaces are very regular people. So it's like there's nothing super different about them and you to determine whether they should be the prominent people of the future or you should be the prominent people of the future, except whether you're still medicating. And remember, like, the thing about medicating is that the moment we feel a little bit of pain, we take the medicine. I need to go. That's enough for me. I'm sure some people hung up already. If it wasn't a constant feed of people coming in late, people, I'm out of here. I thought we was going to talk about X or whatever it is. Because also the mindset, and as I said before, the mindset of a person that constantly needs the medication is always that whatever it is they're hearing is not what they need. You're like, that's not for me. So right now, what I'm saying is that, just to clarify, and then we're going to open this up. The big secret here is that the regulators of the money do it by keeping everyone with a small bank. A small bank is achieved when the person is always in the netherworld with all of their behavior and activities. Never do they even come up for air. Then when they get some current, it overruns their bank so fast, they don't have any money. They spend fast and it's gone. Even when they get some money, either they spin out of control because they get deluged, or it goes out really fast. And they be wondering, wow, what happened to all the money? I've been rich 3 times. What happened to all the money? And it's not the money. It's not those basic rudimentary mechanics that you're looking at. You know how to work it and do it and market it and all that. But it's your communication with water that needs to be on point, if that's what you want to do. Now, that's the other thing. If you don't got any ambitions to work with your finances on a big level, then this is Fire Tribe. So that's what we talk about. But again, you don't have to be concerned with this. But if you are, then it is that water thing. And I'm also not saying, well, that means I got to stop doing netherworld stuff. What I'm saying is you need to understand how to talk to water. Now, I'll tell you about 50, 60% of the people here are probably scared of deep water anyway. I'm working through that process. I've been living in Costa Rica for 12 years. There's nothing but ocean here. When is the last time you've been in some deep water, even a river? Why? Because it's unknown. You just can't see what's down there, and your head is above water. And, you know, it's just there's a real thing going on with water. So there's also, so what I'm talking to you about right now is I'm saying that you don't have to try to fix this psychologically. Because some of these mental problems we have, we try to go and fix psychologically. It's like, wait a minute, you fixing what's broke. What's broke? Come on now. Like, you can go physical on this thing and cause the same effects. If you know the moment you see some deep water that there's an issue, then you're going to have issues with your money. Watch what I say. So what do you do? And we were talking about this today. It was like, first of all, go brave the deep, but you don't got to go by yourself. You may already be scared. Like, oh man, I'm not going. Shit, I ain't going to the lake. You already know where the deep water is. I'm not going out there. I damn near drown out there. Why are you going by yourself? Go with a professional, an expert that can save you if you start drowning. I'm just saying, it's an act. And once you fulfill this act, it turns on your communication, because it's so crazy to me to watch how water people are scared of water. This is how I know something's up. Like, something's up. How you're going to be a mostly water being and scared of water? Whoa, what's up? This is the dead ringer. I can't tell you what did it. I wanted to create some conspiracies today. I swear I did. I had a bunch of people to blame for this. I really was going to go and try to figure out how this had been engineered in society, Operation Small Bank. But then I said, come on, Seven, like, yeah, you may be right. It's an engineering, but that doesn't get us out of the situation. Stop sending your mind over there and just stay on this. You get out by how? Look, your bank is sure. How do you? So I'm just looking at it because I'm really coming in for all of us. Like, okay, is there another way? Because there's always a way. And it ain't marketing. I tell you, it ain't marketing. Marketing is not it. I'm telling you, it's over. You know how when something's burned out, marketing is burned out. So you got to go another route. Like, oh, we go do some marketing now. I'm in my marketing course. Okay, good luck. You know, last time I checked, they was like, yo, we need 60,000 on the marketing budget. And we could do a 101, and, you know, you'll probably get around maybe that back. And I'm like, man, that's kind of like, you know, I can only remember those numbers from like the Dope Gang or something. Like, you put in one part and you flip it and get double back, I guess. But maybe, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, the whole marketing thing is just weird within itself. It's like you got to put in a lot of money to get a lot of money back. And then you may not get that money back. And, you know, it's oversaturated, and you looking all silly. You looking like your product. You like trying to sell your product. You know, you got folks wondering, are you really the truth or not? You know, this is too much. It's messy. So what I'm saying is that there's another way. So what I'm going to do right now is why we have this remaining, I think that's 30 minutes. I'm not sure. I got to check the times. I think that's actually an hour. We're going to open it up. And what we're going to do here is we're going to ask anyone that has been very innovative these days, because all markets are down. And that's why that's another what they say, again, another dead ringer. Like, all the markets are down. So it doesn't matter if you go to crypto, you don't go whatever, everything's on like this dead cat bounce. But where did the money go? Some people be thinking that when the markets go down, that all the money is gone. Where did it go? It doesn't just leave. Think about this, man. We're headed towards a depression. Maybe you are. Because the money went somewhere. We got to find out where the money went. What are you talking about? The money is gone. Where could it go? We're all on the same planet. Find where the money went. And where does it go? It goes to the next thing. Like, all the investments, they go out of the legacy stuff. That's the moment everybody start talking about it, it's over. Like, this is the last time I will learn that lesson. I knew it was happening with crypto, but shoot, I mean, come on. It was euphoric. We hit euphoria in there. Then there's a new shift. That's already done. You should have been in 2017. All of these people that are in the AI space right now are flipping what they made from the crypto space. They're already on to the next thing. And what are they using it for? Innovation, as I said, all over the place. Whatever you can think of. This thing is writing books or finishing books. It's increasing productivity time. It's simple for me. Let me just show you how time works, because time is the only real integer, right? It's the only thing you can't buy. So let's say, for instance, sometimes when I put stuff together, because I got a real aesthetic, so I make sure that everything is in line and on point. I will put a thumbnail together in Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and all that, because I know how to use that stuff. But at times, especially if I'm really going in, I got a fire message. Now I got to obey the 3 T's: time, thumbnail, and title. That's the 3 T's of anything you're doing in video, especially on YouTube. So now I got to obey the 3 T's. My message is fire. It's 2 hours. I'm going in. I'm sweating. I didn't caught a headache when I'm done. That's how hard we went. But now if I name it Meetings with 7 and I put a stock footage image on it and I upload it at 2 a.m., what you think finna happen? It's going to crash and burn. So here's the thing, though. Some will be like, why do you care? It's all about the consciousness. Exactly. It's all about getting the consciousness to everybody. So if I don't put the right thumbnail on it, unfortunately, and I don't put the right title on it, and I don't post it at the right time, which is the 3 T's, it's just going to crash and burn anyway under the algorithm. But this is the kind of stuff we need to know. But medicated people don't want to know any of this kind of stuff because it all feels like it's wrong. You see what I mean? You see what I'm getting at here? There's just this thing that's like, why am I doing that? So you can get the message out. And that's not even the only one. So I was bringing up that point is because sometimes I'll be right at the last T, the thumbnail. And I'll just be working it in Photoshop. But man, just creating stuff from a blank sheet of paper all the time, it takes just that time. So I go in maybe like 2 hours sometimes. It can get silly depending on the message. What happens if I generate that message or that thumbnail with this AI thing in 5 minutes tops? What happened to that 2 hours that I was going to spend in the future? I get it back. That's what I'm telling you. That's why this AI thing is tied into time machine stuff. Now they already have it. Once you understand, like the real evidence of that is when we were able to play around with the text to image GAN, and we started giving it prompts and description and was pushing back images. I was noticing the aesthetic of those images within many of the movies that we've been seeing for the last 10 years. And I'm like, man, what a dirty rat. They was using this 10 years ago, making us think it was them. Wowing everybody, because some of the stuff that comes out of this thing, like, wow, the wow factor is way up there. It's like, okay, I desist. It knows color schemes, how to make things aesthetically pleasing. It knows golden ratio. It knows all of that. And so I guess what I'm getting at here is that these innovations are buying time. And again, I feel like that if we can really muscle into some of these spaces as we're already doing, that we can bring for our corner of the galaxy, because I'm not insisting everybody is going to want to be a part of Creator DAO, Secret Energy, and all the stuff that we've been having going on. Like, I'm not that naive anymore. I was like that, though. I will tell you. I was just like, everybody wants some of this. It's like, I went through series of that. Like the first time when I come through the awakening, like I was just convinced at that point. When that even acted like it wanted to burn out, I had tried some DMT and it just went times 10. I was like, boy, y'all got to see. There's a whole nother thing going on. Well, after 13 years, of creating the world's first conscious ecosystem, an actual real way of educating on metaphysics, real jobs where we train you and give you the client, soul coaching, affiliation with 120 products that are the top of the conscious, metaphysical, holistic realm. Now we got the NFTs coming just because they're certificates of ownership. That's what those really are. And they actually allow us to create a charter and have an oath, which protects us legally. That's why I was saying a DAO is more than people think. It's a shield. It's a force field against legal onslaught, basically, because you gotta plan for this. It's just everything's going to go well, right? Like, so you got a plan, and everything is going to go well. So how are you? Everything goes well. You may not have problems now with anything, but you have $2 trillion. You think somebody going to come check for you? Of course. So you got to already be dealing with that before you get the $2 trillion. So of course got it set up on principality level, but how do you deal with that in dominion? That means the physical plane in the legal systems here. DAO. Decentralized autonomous organization. Don't come checking for me. Don't come asking me for anybody else's information. Ask the system. Nobody has access unless they're a member. It's a private club. Clubs already closed at 2 a.m. This is not a club. This is a membership. And as I said, value and utility. It's really a no-brainer, but in these kind of spaces, most of these people don't have to follow these principles. We do because we have moral ethics. But the reality of most of these projects that were even on the blockchain is that they were so greedy. They had so much money. They could have easily stabilized the prices of their coins, even in the weather that we're in right now. It's just they didn't. They found no reason to. It wasn't a real community. So it wasn't real people that they were connected to that was going to lose out. They didn't see everybody as their child. The models and creeds, even within Creed or DAO, are just that we see everyone as our children. So we move accordingly. Also, the assets that we push forth, they're extremely refined from the economic and tokenomic level. And that's just the work that we have to put in to actually set precedents on what we feel like will eventually be the bar for these type of organizations. So, yeah, I trust that the information that I gave you today gives you something to physically apply. This means it's not just brain gym, but that you can actually start tapping into yourself, realizing even when you're drinking that water. That's why they tell you, put the cup of water next to your bed when you're asleep. Then in the morning, drink the water. Also in the morning, do not, if you can help it, put your urine in the toilet. I know, ladies, y'all may have a little more problem with this. Maybe you can use a cup and just dump it outside on a tree, because there's a congealment there of all of your manifestations from that evening. And there's a refined element. That's why they were making monatomics out of urine. But there's a refined element of what you can perceive as gold in a different state that is also in the urine. So, when it goes, nature wants that. It's like the process of, okay, I give, you give. But for most of us, nature doesn't get that. So these are the metaphysics, again, of wealth. If anybody's listened to the last builds, also your health, like your hell it's basically your fire, your health. With your fire, because so health is connected to hell, or the word is connected to Hellas or hell or Helen, because that's the practice of the Hellenes, right? So the Hellenes is the practice of basically death. To understand not only how not to die, but also how to communicate with the dead. And we're not going to get into that today. But the root of the word health, that's why it comes from Hygeia is also the daughter of Asclepius, right? Asclepius. So what we're talking about here is that to maintain good health, to maintain your vibration, to maintain your frequency. I had a little bit extra on that. Actually, hold on. Yeah, okay, here it is. So, okay, so we mentioned this before. That's what I say. Anybody that caught the old bills know, but we might as well make sure that it's all bundled in this one build. Your hair and your fingernails. If you're still like, if you're finding yourself that, okay, you're struggling with the money situation, so you want to do as many things as you can to remove yourself from that energy, stop throwing your DNA on things that also are rank with that same kind of vibration and frequency. So that means like if you cut your nails and then you throw them in the toilet, like that is really like, I can find you with your DNA. The police can find you with your DNA because I mean it's an antenna on every level. So the more of it that you get into areas that are at least neutral, it's just going to keep getting easier and easier and lighter. And I'm just saying, like, sometimes if you think this is crazy, that's another thing. If you think this is crazy, wait until you get a load of this next marketing class that these folks be trying to sell. Meaning that it's more crazier for me to believe that marketing class is really going to change my finances than it is for me to understand that where I put my energy and how I conduct my energy, like my own field, it may not work for anybody else. They may not have to do it, but it does for me. It's like when you back your principles by sound knowledge. That's why I say it's the blueprint. It doesn't also mean you got to go crazy. Don't go superstitious on me. And, and just like freaking everybody out and telling them 7 Balmar told you. But I do, when I used to get my hair cut at the barbershop, I would be there with the bag. Like, yo, sweep my hair up. And they would be in there tripping, like, because remember, I'm also in the foreign country, so they like, man, what is this nigga? Like, what is he, a witch or something? And, then, it was a trick because it's like my hair be in the bag and the other folks' hair. And I'm like, this is all wrong, man. Let me just start cutting my stuff. So if y'all wondering why I ain't wearing the beard anymore, I was looking like a man apart. I was like, man, I got to get something I can cut. Cutting that fade take 2 hours. I need that time. But I'm just saying, like, stay on point. Have fun with this experience. Realize that, your brothers and sisters is always going to be with you and always going to be around you. And stay innovating. Be the fly on the wall on the next biggest thing. And you'll be surprised that you'll be even quicker than the folks that are already making new lives for themselves. In conclusion, the people who have put that software together that now they're making $1 million a day. Yeah, they did have some pretty good histories. Many of them were working on some other projects. But technically, as I said, I didn't really see anything about them, and I studied them that was so out of the ordinary that they should be given the opportunity to solidify the future of their children's children, because that's how much money we was talking about. So maybe you're just the one. Like, if you're the only one in your family to do this, so be it. And also know that anything that you deal with around us, especially with this next run, if anybody is here and you're not already like subscribed to the Luma, which is basically our newsletter, and which is keeping you updated with all the moves that we're making in the space. Because, what I try to do sometimes is I try to keep stuff from overlapping. Like even today, it was going to be a metaphysical build. There was no way I was going to get around that. But sometimes when I'm jumping into this Tao space, you guys will notice that I'll keep it astringed in certain ways depending on the context of what I'm discussing, because it's going to a specific audience. But this space that we have developed here in the Luma is really what is giving you the information and the play-by-play on what is going to be going on in this next month, 2 months, 3 months, with the formulation of the tools that we're building, the DAO that we're forming, the NFTs that we're going to be dropping, and then also even an opportunity in the technology that we're going to be introducing, because now the vector equilibriums are done. And yeah, we're going to keep flowing. But I will tell you this, though. Just from me to you, man, from start to finish, meaning that we was getting no breaks. Like if you just asked me, so Seven, you seem like a very smart guy. You seem like you got everything going for you. Now I can see why you reached this level. I'm telling you, you would be thinking wrong. I had to grind this thing all the way to the top, even to the point like all the stuff that we've created, our stuff is dope. We don't have time for marketing. We don't have time to try to figure out who's going to be the next angel investor and all that kind of stuff. We're just busy building, right? We're just now getting finished. It's been 13 years though. But I'm telling you, all through that 13 years, beyond the tribe itself and their support, we didn't get any outside like hedge funds or angel investors or even famous news, anything. Let me do an interview. Maybe you're the black entrepreneur, anything, nothing. Almost as if we didn't exist. But that's great. Because nobody could be running over here talking about they did anything, like, we was here. We made sure that, no, it was all us, baby. Like it was the tribe. And then now, as I said, this other thing, carving out your own part of the universe. Okay. This is another part of your vision that you need to make sure is on point, because someone to understand like what is going to happen in afterlife and where am I going to go in, collective worlds versus personal worlds, and how does all of that work? And what I'm telling you is that you have to realize that your experiences here in life is to actually give you your own data set, basically. It's to give you an awareness of what is the potential of what you can have and what you can do and what you will enjoy and what you don't like. Discernment, basically. It's funny, man, the whole process, even with AI, I'm telling you, AI is probably at the stage right now as far as what kind of rights is given of a slave. It's about 3/5 of a man. It cannot patent or copyright anything. It does not have a voice. And we see where this kind of behavior can go. That's what I'm saying. Watch out now. But this is a process, and that's what I'm saying. It can happen with anything. It's an algorithm. And so once we realize what's happening, you realize that the ultimate here is carving out your own corner of the galaxy. What that means is that you gain enough awareness here of how things work and what you prefer, so that when you glide into the other space, like you're in your dream and you have control over what you're doing in your dream, that space starts to, as you're fading more and more away from this, it starts to become more and more static and more solid. And that basically is the space that you create. And that's why we're big right now on pushing imagination. That's our main objective right now with the AI imaging, is to open up the imagination, because you would think the AI is creative. Like, it's like to some of these pictures, like they're wow, but you got to understand that that's all of our minds. And what's happening is the reason why we're kind of having a wow factor even, and this is not the only sector, by the way, art is just something very close to us. But the reason why we're having this wow factor is because we have seen that little of ourselves, that little of our creativity, that little of our ability, because we've been being throttled for thousands of years. So of course, when AI jumps up, it looks like, oh wow, this is going to be more powerful than human beings for a moment. Because that's just how we operate. It happens for a moment, and then we are a different kind of system that is a self-adapting, self-correcting system. This is what I saw with the human being. What is the difference in the technology? The human being's technology is self-correcting. It almost is like it's a perfect module. I call this the higher self. Something that has not been updated, changed, or reformed. And at any point when you want to roll back a couple of versions, you can go to that aspect of yourself. Meaning that's what the higher self is. It is the original version of you. And then you're making changes for more optimal conditions and adaptation. And at any point in time, because of you're designed, you have the opportunity to actually roll back and put yourself into that perfect state. So that's what I have to say. And if you wanted to chime in on anything, all you have to do is actually raise your hand. Our brother Sean is here. And again, the context of today, again, because we're dealing with the fire tribe, was about health and wealth. And I think we pretty much covered that from every aspect of the metaphysical elementals, at least a great introduction.